Chapter 3. The System. The only way on or off the ship was through the bay doors below the ship. It was a big round entrance. The entrance was about 20 feet in diameter and about 6 feet thick. Six 12-inch thick doors slowly slid open simultaneously. A very bright energy of light came on as the doors opened. A sharp energy of light shot out from the bottom of the ship just as it reached Earth's atmosphere. At the same time, the pods took off into the light. Out the doors and through the beam of light about 25 kilometers and darted out of the light. The light went out, the doors closed, and the ship picked up speed towards the dark side of the moon. Earth, the third planet from the sun, is the only planet with known life. It has more water on its surface than land, and it has one moon. The two pods jetted towards Earth at an enormous rate of speed. Maxwell took off towards the dark side of the moon. Tupai opened a file on planets orbiting the sun. Venus is full of volcanoes and has an atmosphere so heavy it keeps the surface hot enough to melt lead. Mercury is the planet closest to the sun, with a surface similar to Earth's moon. It's heavily cratered. At the center of the solar system is the largest body, the sun. It's one of over 100 million stars in our galaxy. Its gravitational pull holds the planets in orbit, and its rotation affects everything in the solar system. 1700 hours. The pod reach the Earth's atmosphere and turns into two balls of fire. About 15 seconds later, they hit the Atlantic Ocean with such a force the splash went up at least 60 feet in the air, traveling at the speed of 70 nautical miles per hour or more, heading northwest towards New York City. Coop finds his rest stop, a mountain range on the bottom of the ocean. Coop gets to the base of the mountain range. Coop starts cutting into the mountain downward at a 30-degree angle with a laser beam. He cuts a big hole in the rock, big enough for the pods to enter, one after the other. Coop's pod came to a halt. 15,3800 hours. He made his final incision. The laser stopped cutting into the rock and a small cylinder-shaped object was shot into the 12-foot-long hole. An image of Coop came over 42's console. Back up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The small cylinder ignited, causing an explosion. The explosion caused the rocks to melt down, which left a perfectly square room. When they entered the room was totally empty, with the exception of two medium-sized boxes in the middle of the floor. The pods hovered silently across the room. The cave echoed as the pressure locks released. The doors, made of a lightweight material, popped open. The two men got off their hovering bikes like pods. Coop pulled out the case and opened it. Coop used the ID card to turn on the case. It turned on, revealing a hologram of a three-dimensional map of New York City. Coop briefed 42 on the mission. Destination, New York City. Rico will be at the nightclub called the Palladium on 14th Street at 2100 hours. It's 1900 hours now. He leaves the club at 0200 hours. We have 7 hours. Our operative, Lockhead, in the Bronx, should be awaiting our arrival. We will meet him at 1237 Webster Avenue in the Bronx, apartment 2D. We don't know where the girl is. Lockhead should be able to tell us. A trap door on the bottom of the case popped open to reveal a mask of a man's face with the appearance of someone that is of an African American descent. Coop pulled out the mask and put it on. The mask was a full bust size with about 68 trillion nanobytes port connections. It fits almost any cyborg's face. Looking in the mirror, Coop begins to put on the mask. The nanobytes quickly connects with Coop's metallic skull. He asks CP1 for help. He always had trouble with the tear ducts and the sweat glands. Coop begins to pack up. Seeing this, 42 quickly picked up Coop's pod cover, made of a durable, lightweight material. Coop got on his hovercraft. 42 put the top of the hovercraft on first. Coop waited to see 42 get his top on. 42 got on his hovercraft. He started it up and took it to the top of the cave, flipped it on its back, and came down slowly onto the top of his hovercraft, or his pod. He pressed a button to activate the pressure locks. He then flipped the pod right side up. Coop said, "Go," and 42 took off. Coop dropped a cylinder-like object from his pod into the cave floor and took off after 42. The cylinder-shaped object was a bomb meant to close the cave's entrance. They must be quick, they only have 16 seconds. The pod shot out of the base of the mountain range on the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. They traveled west for about an hour at top speed, passing Long Island, Rockaway Beach, and Queens until they reached the Verrazano Narrows, New York Harbor. They made a right at Governor's Island towards the Brooklyn Bridge. 160800 hours. Then they hit the East River. The East River's currents are pretty rough, but it was no problem for the pods. They pushed on until they got to the FDR Drive at 111th Street. They pulled the pods over to the side. The pod emerged from the black waters. From a small hatch on the top of the craft, the two men got out of the craft, stepped onto the dock. Coop and 42 had on long black coats made of a leather material over their clean white Federation uniforms. They started walking away from the pods. Coop pulled out a small rectangular shaped device from his coat pocket. He pressed a button. On the device, there was three beeps, and the pods began to submerge into the black water of the East River. They got to a fence and climbed it. They then walked towards the overpass used to cross the FDR. The gentleman then proceeded to walk across and onto East 111th Street. As they stopped to wait for the light on East 111th Street and First Avenue, Coop watched as the taxis, buses, cars, and trucks passed by, thinking to himself, many things has changed. He has not been to Earth since 1970. The United States ended its military involvement in the Vietnam War. They crossed the street side by side, military style. They passed the Con Ed building headed towards 2nd Avenue. 42 smelled spices in the air. He likes the smell of the food cooking in the nearby Spanish restaurants. They made a right on Lexington Avenue. They walked until they reached the 125th Street and turned towards the west side. When they got to Park Avenue, 42 caught the scent of marijuana in the air. He noticed he passed the 6 train, the 5 train, and the 4 train. Now he sees the 2 train up ahead. 42 turns to Coop in a smart alecky tone. I got an idea. Let's take the train. Coop said nothing. They finally got to the D train. Coop turned to 42. We'll take this to the 4 and get off at 167th Street. They went down into the subway station. They walked with a very nonchalant attitude. Coop hopped the turnstile. 42 followed him. The lady at the token booth yelled, "Pay your fare." They go down one more level to reach the platform of the D train, which arrived right on time. They got on the last car of the train. The doors closed behind them. Coop walked past the crowd gathered at the door towards the back of the car to get a look out of the window in the back door. He thought to himself how things have not changed.